Hi everyone, it's Grant Abbott speaking, Director of the Succession, Asset Protection and Estate Planning Advisors Association. So hopefully this is our second major webinar, and although there's been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes to get an association up, and many of us belong to associations, whether it's Law Society, the CANS, or the Institute of Public Accountants, or CPAs, or Financial Planning Association. They've been around for a long time, and really to get an association up and running isn't that easy. However, I suppose one benefit is that I was involved right at the outset in terms of the SMSF Professionals Association, which has since morphed into the SMSF Association, and also set up the SMSF Members Association, which is really didn't go anywhere, mainly because it was very difficult to get, as you guys know, trustees to commit to providing competency standards, etc. As far as they're concerned, it's really up to the advisor. So it's another layer on top of that. One of the key elements for us in starting off that Succession, Asset Protection, Estate Planning Advisors Association is we all need to work on what our relevant competency standards are. If I just take you down to the next level, and you can see here in skill, obviously there's knowledge, learning, competence, training, experience, ability, growth, which happens over a period of time. Within that broad umbrella that we have under SAPEPAA, for example, in the succession space, one of our leading lights in there is Susanna Bransgrove, who works for Gold Consulting, or I think it's Liquid Gold Consulting. She does a lot of work with small and medium businesses in that family succession space, those soft skills, discussing with a client what's going on. Now, not all of us are really down that level. A lot of us prefer to look at the structural side of the equation. For me, preparing the documents, getting everything absolutely perfect, and that's absolutely crucial. Whereas my skills fit under the SAPEPAA banner, as do hers as well. And if I know we've got a few other potential members who look at family succession in regional areas, particularly amongst farms, which have their own ideologues and their own communication and understandings quite separately from everyone else. In terms of, for example, succession, employee share plans, which Michael will be taking you through tomorrow at 12:30 Australian Daylight Savings Time, if you have that opportunity. If you haven't logged on for that, make sure you do it, Lightyear Docs. And the main one there is that fits in under there as well, as does estate planning. So we've got this huge, big, I suppose, pie to carve up. And then there's many small pieces of the pie. So when we come around to doing competency standards, the way that I see it, and I can only go from experience, my background originally was as a teacher, believe it or not, although I only did a 3 out of 4 year teaching degree at Rusden State College, which is Monash Teachers College, where I was studying to be a phys ed and a maths teacher. Gave that up mainly because I wasn't making, or it didn't look as though I was going to make a huge amount of money for it. But, I've learned how to do class lessons, training, etc. So I established the first ever SMSF specialist advising course in the year 2000, well and truly before the standards came in 2004. I was involved in a pilot committee developing the 5 or 6 now standards for providing advice in self-managed super funds, which found their way into the Business Skills Council and are now part of the Financial Services Training Package. So I've got a really good understanding of how to build those competency standards. And I've drafted up 5 to start off with. So I want to take you through what I've done, why we're doing it, I want to release them in a draft for you to have a look at, and then get feedback so we can start to ratify these competency standards. So really, at the start of any association, it's important for us to work out where we want to be in terms of our skill set. And I, just the same as all of you, are right at that crucial point. I have a lot of skills around education, training, competencies, etc. In the past, I've been helped, particularly at the Smsf Association, by Kerry Heights Pearson from Terra Cordis. So I may well bring her in to get our standards and then get them elevated into a separate training package. And then from that training package, g'day Mick, how are you?
How are you?
Yeah, good. Just going through just a general intro, but we'll get those involved. I'll have a chat with Kerry and see if she can help us develop those and lodge them with the Business Skills Council and set up our own training package. In fact, one of the competency standards that I'm going to show you that we'll be relying on comes from the Financial Services Training Package, which this essentially will be part of it. So we have one part of potentially 5 competency standards that are dealing with, I think you've got someone sneaking in at the back there, which is a bit of fun there, Mick. So what we've got there is the providing advice in estate planning. There's actually a whole set of competency standards I want to take you through as it relates to us and then show you what else we've got. Now, when we come down to competency, we have to work out as an association where we would like to stand. When we have a look at it from that perspective, there's 4 sets of competency standards. These were originally established by Abraham Maslow, who is one of my favourite psychologists of the 1940s, the 1950s. Many of you have heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He did a lot of work in the educational system, came up with this. It was also developed in 1970 as being the 4 areas from the delivery of a skill. So when we go down, many of you are probably well aware, unconscious incompetence. I don't know that I don't know. We see that all the time when we're dealing from a tax perspective. You know, when you're dealing with a junior who's got no idea around tax. If it's SMSFs, you know, clients are a classic unconscious incompetence. We see a number of advisors down that track. In fact, even in terms of the niche around estate planning, if I have a look at, if I went to 10 suburban lawyers and said I'd like to set up a SMSF Death Benefits Trust, I would say that 10 of them would say that it is impossible to have a testamentary trust for an SMSF. So clearly what they're going is, I don't know that I don't know. So, but they bluff along the track, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way that it tends to happen. We move from unconscious incompetence, which with a lot of SAPEPAA stuff and the standards we're going to look at, I was hyping up your session tomorrow, Mick, in terms of employee share plans, which fit under this financial services training package that we're going to deliver. A lot of us are probably consciously incompetent, so that we are aware there are things called employee share plans, but we don't really know much about it. But we go through the training, we build 1 or 2, and once we've gone through the training, the skills, we have mentors such as Mick, etc. We then move from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. I know that I'm good, I know how to do it, and I understand why I'm doing it. But inside that conscious competence could be a level of, you know, anywhere from, 2 up to probably around about 10. So, for example, an SMSF Death Benefits Trust, which is a testamentary trust under 102AG4, that enables a trustee of an SMSF to create an SMSF testamentary trust, hence falling under this SAPEPAA banner, and adult children and also minor children to be taxed at adult rates. Effectively, we, probably a lot of us, now that I've said it, we've now moved from unconscious incompetence, because we didn't know about it before, to conscious incompetence. Is that, look, I know that I don't know, Grant said it can be done and I trust Grant, to now going to the stage of, well, what do we need to do to become consciously competent in it? And then over time, we move up the scale to where conscious competence. So I know that I'm good, I don't think about it anymore. So for example, from me, when it comes around to doing a SMSF death benefits trust, I'm pretty aware of all the permutations, the relevant aspects of the documentations that's required. I'm aware of how to go through the law to find it, aware of commissioners' rulings on that, so that I can just go out and say, okay, well, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. And many of you are probably not at that stage, but you can move up that stage pretty quickly. One of the areas that when I first started the SMSF specialist course, my understanding was that coming from the background of teaching, having done a Masters of Law with some of Australia's leading taxation lights at the time, including Graham Cooper, Sir Richard Vann, Ross Parsons, Robert Deutsch, and a whole lot of others, Gordon Cooper. Those sessions that we used to do is the law would come out, we look at the law, if there's any guidelines from the Commissioner, we look at the guidelines, then we applied them to a set of circumstances. And then we might change the circumstances, see how they apply. We might change them again and see how they apply. So that it's not that hard to get out of that conscious incompetence into conscious competence. And a lot of that is the application of the law to a set of facts or case study. And then once we get very good at it, obviously we've got unconscious competence. So for many of you, or like, for example, Mick, I would say that you're probably unconsciously competent. You just know how to do, for example, a set of trust distribution minutes. So that's just would that be right? So that's a given.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit like riding a bike or snow skiing. Once you know it becomes natural over time, doesn't it? So and you don't really think about it anymore. You just jump on the bike and you start pedaling. And
although that's quite interesting, because unconsciously competent in terms of riding a bike, yeah, absolutely right. Now, put me at the top of Mount Coolin with a mountain bike and say, Grant, ride down. I can tell you, I'm in that unconscious incompetence, which can be, if you do that, it's a huge problem with your safety. And it's the same thing is when you're doing that sort of stuff, advising in areas that you don't know, that's when there's huge elements of safety. You need a big moat around yourself. So when we're coming down and we're building these standards, and I'll start going through, is essentially what we want to do is work out, in that collective, from our perspective, is, where do we want to say? So if we want as an industry, and look, we are creating an industry here. If we want a standard and say, okay, well, where do you want to be? We want to say, okay, well, we want to ensure that advisors who are accredited by SAPEPAA as being succession, asset protection, estate planning advisors, they have this level of competency. Now, obviously, it's not going to be the bottom two. It's going to be a certain level of conscious competence. So we need to know what those relevant competencies are, what is important, how to assess it, and how to get it so that as an industry, we can stand on our own 2 feet. So, for example, if we look at any accounting body between the Institute of, the IPA versus the CPA versus CANS, they all have different standards, but there's nothing wrong with that. But they all have the basic standards, which is really important. So we need to work out where we want to be, and it'll be the same cases that we need to have strong standards that do stand the test of time, but are also flexible. As more and more people drift into this space, so for example, to get an estate planning lawyer within this field, they may well know a lot around conscious competence in terms of providing a will, etc. However, if they don't know anything about self-managed super funds, then they're down to that conscious incompetence, or maybe even the unconscious incompetence. So it's really important, as if we want to hold ourselves up as being this level, and the level that any testing or assessment will be at is at a postgraduate level. So it doesn't mean that we need to have a degree, as many people try to do in terms of the planning space. It's a matter of working out whether we have that competency level or not. Do we need a legal degree? No. Do we need an accounting degree? No. Do we need any degree? Potentially not at all. So again, it comes down to experience and setting the standards ourselves. And that to me is the modern way of thinking. If you have a look at it from my perspective, the traditional old school thinking, is, go in, learn a rote, do this, don't necessarily apply. I don't think it's ready for the modern times. These days, we see completely different things. We apply different solutions and strategies, and essentially that's where we want to go. Any thoughts from you on that one, Michael?
I agree completely, Grant. I think things have changed where you needed to have a degree, or you need to be a CAA or a CPA or a lawyer in particular in certain areas. So as long as they meet certain standards and training, and we uphold those standards, then it flows through, doesn't it?
Well, I think that's also important that when you have a look at the accounting profession, there's a number of different associations. They have different standards, and then it's up to you to choose which association you want. The area that we're working in, we're creating our own association, our own standards, because it's a broader principle. It'll come under, when it comes around to training, it'll come under the financial services training package. That doesn't mean it's always dealing with financial services, but indicative for that is that it does encompass a lot of those areas. So I've built 5 of these, and there may well be, and this is what I'll send you out in draft, probably not today. I need to send it to Michael first, but probably we'll send it out on Friday for you to have a look at in draft, and would love to have your feedback on it. They're all much the same because they've all been built on the financial services training package standards. And it's also not the financial services, the standards that we're doing, the Australian recognised Business Skills Council standards, and also the training packages that go on to the training.gov.au. So the same format, the same process I'm going to be taking you through is equally, in fact, I could drag one up. I was having a look one before, the training package for correctional services officers. Now, obviously, they've got completely different aspects, but it all follows the same format, the same assessment, the same sort of qualifications, so that when you do get assessed on these, particularly if you were an RTO, someone from the Skills Council will come in and I forget who it does anyway, but they come in and they look at the process you're doing to look at how you're going to extract the information, how do you assess, etc. So I've got 5 standards there. The first one is providing advice on succession, asset protection, estate planning. So that's a broader aspect, dealing with clients, so on and so forth. SAPEPAA 102 is applying taxation requirements to advising in succession, asset protection and estate planning. Now, I put SAPEPAA 102, but these will end up being FNS, which is the Financial Services Training Package. They'll change their names. But at this stage, we are going to stick with these, and it'll probably take 6 to 12 months to get these up on the Financial Services Training Package, which doesn't mean, so there's a beauty about this, is that once we get these standards up and they're adopted by SAPEPAA, ratified by the board, then any educational institution can come in, take these standards, map these standards, and then develop courses along those. Importantly, what will happen is then they'll go to the training package, then RTOs will be able to do it. So we're in a period of probably maybe a year and a half grace, so that those people, if there are courses out there, and certainly Lightyear Docs will be building a course, that meet these standards, as I'm sure Kaplan and others will be doing, there will be a bit of grace period from 12 months to 18 months before it gets formally ratified by the Financial Services Training Package. So that anyone who gets in, meets these accreditation, if the standards have to go up, at least you're going to be grandfathered, which is important. So 102 is applying taxation requirements to advising in succession, asset protection and estate planning. 103 is applying legislative and operational requirements to advising this area. 104 is, which is an important one, support trustee. It should be support the trustee and the client. And when I mean that, I've probably, in fact, trustee, client and director, because obviously there's a range of structures which will come into play in asset protection, succession estate planning, including testamentary trust, fixed trusts, discretionary trusts, family protection trusts, SMSFs, bucket companies. A lot of these all fit in there. So we need to work out when we're doing the outsourcing. One is that it's outsourcing if you're a generalist to a specialist, and more importantly, documentation. Where are we going to outsource our documentation, our administration of that? So below this, we can actually have quite separate competency standards for providing administration support in relation to all of these. The final one, 105, which I'll take you through because this is actually part of the financial services training package, and that's advise clients in estate planning. So the first four are very broad in their import. So I'll look at 101, and then I'll go down to 105, which becomes more of a specialist area in that aspect. So let's just jump out of here, and I'll go in and let's have a look at our competency standards. So the first one I'm going to look at, as you'll see, I'll just take you up to here, which is my OneDrive. I've got my SAPEPAA down here, and you can see here I've got competency standards here. We've got legislative standards providing advice in SAPEPAA. So if I just have a look at that, and I'll come back to the estate planning, which is a bit more formalised. So this is providing advice in succession, asset protection, estate planning. I'll need to obviously do this up, but you'll see I'll go in a little bit further. Provide advice. So there's a modification history. So this is standard. If you go to any training package, this is exactly what you'll get. And it's best to do it up front now, because then if anyone says that, look, I've got an accreditation, then at least you'll know that we've got competency and standards which are Australian-wide. So the unit descriptor, this unit describes the performance outcomes, skills and knowledge required to provide advice in succession, asset protection, estate planning. It encompasses the ability to establish relationships with clients, identify and analyse their objectives, needs and financial situation and risk profile, to develop and present appropriate strategies and solutions, negotiate financial plan and coordinate its implementation, maintaining necessary documentation, providing ongoing service where requested by the client. This unit is applicable to individuals working with enterprise and job roles that entail advice, document preparation, administration and provision of services in the succession, asset protection and estate planning arena. The application of the unit, so it applies to job roles and succession. Licensing, so there's no requirement to be licensed in this area, except, for example, if you're dealing with some core issues around self-managed super funds. But again, I expect that will drop out over a period of time. There's no prerequisite units at this stage. The employee skills, obviously there's employability skills in here. Elements and performance criteria. Performance and criteria describe performance need to demonstrate, blah, blah, blah. So I built that, and you'll see that this is going to be fairly common across all of the training packages. What I want to do now is just show you the other one, which is the more highly specialised one. And this is taken from the financial services training package. So what I've got here is 105, but it'll come up as FNS1. I think I might, I'm not sure if I did that. I'll just show you how it works. So services training package. Okay, so we've got the financial service. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just go to training.gov.au just to show you where it is. So here's the training package. It'll sit on, eventually we'll get it once it goes through the system. It'll end up being in training.gov.au. So it'll be an industry-wide specialisation. So when I go to training.gov.au, I can put in here nationally recognised training. I'll just put in estate planning. I'll search that. And you can see 9 results. So, okay, so accredited courses, units of competency. So you can see here, advise clients in estate planning, which is FNS PRT 502. All of these you keep, obviously they'll be changed, etc. So when I have a look at that, that is essentially what I've used as a draft here for providing advice in estate planning. So when we go down, you can see here, I've just pulled it straight out of the training package, but I've modified it for SAPEPAA. So let's go down and have a look. I need to get out of the footer, so sorry about that one. Let me just get out of my footer so I don't have that. Design, draw, header and footer. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you can see here, I really haven't had, the good thing about this is unlike the other training packages, which I've had to, the other competencies I've had to build, this one has been very easy because there is already a standard set for advising clients in estate planning. Now, interesting, let's go through this one and this will give us a good understanding of where we are. So again, you can see this is taken straight out of the financial service training package and it's all exactly as I showed you before. Modification history, I've got not applicable because it relates to SAPEPAA rather than financial services training package. Remember the one I showed you, the modification, you've got deleted, superseded, etc. So I'll just put this up and this will give you a really good understanding of the sort of knowledge that you're at. So what I want to do is as I go through this, I wanted you to assess yourself. Are you unconsciously incompetent in this area? Are you consciously incompetent, meaning you don't know, or so you know what you don't know? Or are you consciously competent in this area? So this unit describes the performance, outcomes, skills, and knowledge required to interpret client requirements from a needs analysis and match their needs to relevant products and services by providing advice on estate planning such as trusts, wills, attorneyships, other legal processes, reconciling any concerns and gaining confirmation. I'll probably also put advanced healthcare directives in there as well. I'd also put in there, obviously, self-managed super funds or superannuation. So these standards were built quite a while ago. And again, they're not, you would have thought that as part of the financial services training package that they would have super, but it doesn't. So we're going to embed that further in there. This unit may apply to job roles subject to licensing, legislative, regulatory or certification requirements. So Commonwealth, state and territory requirements should be confirmed with the relevant body. And of course, the relevant body in this instance is going to be SAPEPAA. So this unit applies to job roles in estate planning. Licensing, not applicable, again, unless it relates to SMSFs, but doing B2BNs or my preferential, the SMSF will, is not a licensing product because it's simply contingent. There's no prerequisites. Employability skills, absolutely. So the elements and performance criteria pre-content. So elements describe the essential outcomes of a unit of competency. Performance criteria describe the performance needed to demonstrate achievement of the element. Where bold and italicized text is used, further information is detailed. The required skills and knowledge section in the range assessment. Assessment of performance is to be consistent with the evidence guide. So we'll go down. Okay, so, elements and performance criteria. Let me just bring that up. Oops, sorry. Okay, obviously there's a bit of an issue there. I have to get my typing. So develop strategies based on client requirements. So these are all so one of the competency skills that if we're doing it with Mick wants to get into this, he has to be able to develop strategies based on client requirements. So that's the first rule of thumb, obviously. So relevant details and documentation in relation to a client's estate are obtained and reviewed. And a lot of that can come from, obviously, a client data capture. Details in relation to the estate are interpreted. Relevant products are researched. And when they mean products, they mean wills, enduring powers of attorney, successor director solution, family protection trust, the protector, etc. And appropriate products are matched to the client needs. Benefits, risk, taxation requirements, and issue for differing circumstances are identified and considered. Assistance is sought from internal and external sources as required based on the skills and experience of the advisor. So that may well be a mentor, or it may well be another specialist, SAPEPAA advisor, or an estate planning lawyer. Types of insurance available for estate planning are identified, which is, again, quite useful. And the most appropriate options are chosen and prepared to review with the client. So we end up developing a plan. So present strategies and information to clients. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen this through Abbott-Family. When I do a presentation for a client, I've got one here for, I think it's a client I did the other day. So sorry, Nathan, if you're watching this. So I've got a presentation, how to protect family wealth for Nathan Chapman and the family. So it goes through the issues, looks at estate planning, the issues that are faced by him, etc. So I've got a whole presentation there. And that flows into, obviously, the area that we were looking at. And that is, sorry, this is the wrong one. Oops, no, it's the right one. I think this is here. Yeah, so, oh no, it's the wrong one. Sorry about that. Where is my taxation outsourced? Oh, here it is, estate planning. So here, present strategies and information to clients. So you're going to need to do that. Now, we don't want to do an SOA because we're not licensed. So I would strongly recommend, and more than happy if you're a Light Year Docs user, to send you that presentation that I generally give for the client, and taking them through all the aspects of succession, all the aspects of asset protection, and also the estate planning. So what we do is the nature and purpose of a trust and other products for an estate plan with relevant information, legislative requirements are explained to the client. Benefits and considerations for beneficiaries are identified and explained accurately to the client. The use of insurance and estate planning is explained clearly and accurate to the client. Restrictions relating to family companies are identified and explained to the client where required. The roles and responsibilities for trustee are explained clearly and accurately in language appropriate to the client. So then reconcile client concerns and gain information. Client concerns regarding the advice and recommendation are discussed and clarified, and confirmation on how to proceed determined. Now, this is one. Associated fees and cost structures are clearly explained to the client in their formal agreement to the proposed plan or transaction gained, if appropriate. Timeframes for execution process are clearly explained, and confirmation of understanding gained from the client. Prepare and document the estate plan. The estate plan is prepared according to statutory requirements consistent with client requirements. Client confirmation of estate plan is obtained and effected as required. Record keeping and safe storage of documents is undertaken. Now, prepare ongoing service where requested. Type and form of ongoing service if need be, particularly if you're in this area. It's worthwhile, obviously, looking at it each and every year because things and circumstances change. Ongoing services provided and reviewed as required. Now, the required skills and knowledge. So now, as you can see, what we've got, the beauty about these competency standards, particularly the performance criteria, it actually tells us in this process that a competent estate planning advisor, this is the way, shape, and form they need to relate to the client. So those soft skills, and obviously there's the hard skills, the taxation, the knowledge, the legislative are embedded in there, but it talks about what level, when costs to be done. Is there an ongoing service fee? So we can actually lean on a lot of this performance criteria to build a business. In fact, they're the best way of building a business because they're the competent way of building a business. Does that sort of make sense, Mick? I'm sort of rattling on.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, so I think if we have a look at that, the good thing about a competency standard, it enables anyone to go in and say, okay, well, how can I test whether Mick is competent? Then all I have to do is, quite apart, I can test his legislative, his understanding, but more importantly, I can go through his performance criteria with a client and see if he's met all of these boxes. You know, has he talked to them? Has he gone back? Has he covered all their trusts? Has he covered all their companies? Has he covered all their SMSFs? Interestingly, on this one, and you tell me, I would say to be from us, we need to show our competency. We need to be consciously competent around that. How many, based on this performance criteria, from the average suburban lawyer that does your estate planning, how many meet this performance criteria? What would you say?
Not many.
Yeah, not many.
Not many.
Yeah. No. Well, the mere fact,
I've been in court cases in relation to where they certainly haven't met that on, especially around the documentation.
Yeah, exactly. And more importantly, the risks involved. So here we've got is benefits and risks. So the first risk is if we do a will or send everything to the estate, the first risk is there's going to be a family provisions claim. Now, I mean, how many lawyers, when they're drafting wills up for the clients, say, look, this is potentially going to be challenged? I dealt with a client yesterday, which was quite an interesting one. And they had it was all about this restructure, but they were in a family business. The parents had a family business. There was a couple of the kids working in the family business and one not. And all the shares were owned by mum and dad. And I said, well, what happens if they died yesterday? They said, well, it goes to myself and also my brother. And I said, so your sister's left out? I said, yeah, but she's getting something else. I said, well, what if she challenges it? What's that going to happen? The problem is it's a business. If she challenges, generally from your experience, Mick, how long do these challenges take?
Yeah, 18 months.
18 months. Yeah, and you have a look at the Taylor Miller case, that was 6 years.
Yeah,
so you know,
that's probably minimum, like 12 to 18 months at least.
Oh, absolutely. By the time you get probate, you go through all that process because probate's important because in case someone is challenging, probate can take a year. Then you might end up with 2 or 3 years of litigation. And as soon as that happens, what happens to the company? And I think one of the areas there, that risk is you need to have that successor director solutions, absolutely crucial. So now we get down to the required skills and knowledge. So the required skills that we need to show is that there's good communication skills, being able to confirm the client estate plan requirements using questioning and active listening, provide customer service and deal sensitively with clients, obviously, resolve disputes and conflicts, absolutely, liaise with others such as specialist advisors, use language and concepts appropriate to cultural differences, absolutely. Well-developed research and analysis, IT skills for accessing appropriate systems and databases, highly developed numeracy skills, interpret complex financial statements, absolutely. Well-developed literacy skills to read and interpret documentation from a variety of sources, including laws, obviously, prepare the documentation, record, consolidate and file information, problem-solving skills, blah, blah, blah. So the required knowledge is Commonwealth, state and territory, wills, taxation, trustees, intestacies, attorneyships, and I would also put superannuation. And I'll go and fix this up as well. Application of interstate and overseas legislation requirements, that's a tough one, including age and disability. Organisational policies and procedures, that's, for most of us as advisors, that's not going to be a big one. This financial services training package is actually for personal trustees and public trustees and things like perpetual trustee and permanent trustee. So these are perfect systems for us. Now, we obviously will need to have organisational policies, but they're not going to be any extent. As you can see here, this is in the personal trustee industry, so I'll change that. Ethical practices, professionalism, confidentiality, obviously. Okay, so the evidence guide. So we've got our standards, what our performance criteria, Then we've gone into our second one, which is we need to show the required skills and knowledge. Now we actually have to show the evidence. So critical aspects of assessment evidence of the ability to identify products that pertain to the person, I'll change this to estate planning and appropriate to meet the needs of the clients, a high level of interpersonal skills, competency is demonstrated in context of the financial services work environment conditions, access to software, doing up documentation. Methods of assessment, a range of assessment methods should be used to assess practical skills and knowledge, evaluating samples of work, verbal, written, etc. So these are the sort of things that we need to look at. The range statement is, the range statement relates to units of competency whole. It allows for different, so details and documentation may include articles of association, assets and liabilities, beneficiaries, companies' records, taxation returns, trust deeds, taxation requirements, overseas beneficiaries, superannuation funds, capital gains tax, estate planning, establish a trust, funerals, health directives, which is, I think, is important, powers of attorney, preparing a will, and the range statement, corporate versus personal trustees, Commonwealth, blah, 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 payment from super funds. So you can actually see restrictions relating family companies, successor directors, not being able to directly gift assets of a business structure to a beneficiary, which is obviously, unit sector, personal trustee, we'll put in there. So we'll put obviously the advisors. As I said, what I've done is, this is the only one I have pulled straight off the financial services training package. I pulled that out today at, I think it was about 15 minutes before this session came on. So what I'll do is we'll now update it in terms of SAPEPAA. But as I said before, we've got 4 standards there that relate to different ones. The other ones that I've built, essentially, when we have a look at them, those ones that have been built are all related to succession, asset protection, estate planning. So I've built those ones from scratch. So I think we've got some pretty strong standards there. We've got tax, estate planning. I could possibly put in another unit for succession. I'm not sure that we need that. I think probably 101 can cover that instance there. But certainly when we come down later, if we want to add succession or business succession, which would include employee share plans, the soft skills of dealing with family-based businesses, that could come out as quite a separate unit. But we have to start somewhere, and we don't want to overload ourselves with having a huge amount of competencies, etc. But we certainly want to be able to set up a set of standards that really enables us to stand out in the field and say, look, this is where we are. And then, you know, if we ever get challenged by an estate planning lawyer or an accountant or whatever around asset protection or whatever, we can say, well, hold on, we've met these standards. They're sitting in training.gov.au, endorsed by the Business Skills Council, so that it's then very difficult for someone to challenge us, particularly if we've got a little piece of paper that says we are accredited as a specialist. So how's that one, Mick?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Okay, so just going through, maybe do you want to give a bit of an update of where we are in relation to the operational side of SAPEPAA, Mick?
Yeah, certainly. Well, obviously we fielded out to and canvassed who would be interested in joining groups in relation to assisting, or working groups in relation to assisting in the rollout, and so I've got a list of those. We'll go out. Grant mentioned we'll get drafts of standards out on Friday, or draft at least one standard. As part of that, we'll also send out to those who have shown us. And everyone is, most of the people have given me areas of interest. We'll send out details of that, and also a timetable in relation to when we'll start holding some of those first working group meetings. We're in the process of working on some preliminary branding, which will, obviously the working groups will work on those as well, and also setting up the initial website.
And I think if you have a look at these project milestones, you know, this is sort of where we are. And look, I know there's some really great people on this talk that would be fantastic to, you you know, to get involved in it. For example, I know Eric Sears, you've done a lot of work when it comes around to dealing with disability trusts, a special disability trust. We're absolutely crucial in that estate planning, which is a whole world unto itself. And again, it's that area that as advisors, we need to show conscious competence, or alternatively, we need to show that we're aware that we don't know that area and we can find out where to find that detail and work into it, or get a specialist in there. And I know Michael Fox has done, you know, a lot of stuff around here, Manish. So there's a lot there for us to, you know, to really leverage on, and certainly we're all working in this together. This is not just myself and Mick. We've got, you know, a lot of people putting in an effort. Now, there's been stuff done behind the scenes. Mick and we'll get up in February. We'll come back with a session. The next step is to send out, as Mick said, these draft standards for you all to review. I'd love you to go through that process. I've showed you how it works. Look at it from your own perspective. Where would you fit into each one of these standards? And then more importantly, look at, so once we get those drafts, if you can give your feedback within a 2-week time frame, so they can then go to the board and effectively get ratified. From that one, what we'll do is we'll then go out and get founding 5-year memberships launched in February in order to give us some funds in this to obviously get at least the basis of administration, to get it up and running, to get a website up and running. And then the standards are obviously, we're all working voluntarily on this one, but that then we'll go back to the subcommittees, which I'll show you in a second. And we intend to launch across Australia in the press in March 2021. You know, I'd love to get, I know Self-Managed Super Fund magazine, I know Jason, and I also know that Darren there, the guys there are really helping us out, which would be fantastic. You know, maybe if they could even put a section in there, or come up with some ideas around this, or how to support us, would be fantastic. So we'll be launching across Australia. Sorry?
Yeah, Jason's actually on here today. So,
oh, fantastic. So, you know, it'd be great to, again, get some support there, whether it's a weekly email around this industry, so that everyone can help us. Again, we'll do a formal launch in March 2021. I'm not sure whether that'll be an online or face-to-face launch at some point in time, but everyone will get an opportunity for that one. And then our intent is certainly prior to that launch, the formal launch, we'll have the competency standards out and published, and we'll let various RTOs know about that. Importantly, certainly from Lightyear Docs, or I Love SMSF, as a training organisation, we'll have our course out meeting those competency standards probably in March or April, and looking at doing a 3-day online course, which will have 14 modules covering all of these. So watch out for those ones. In terms of the committees, we're obviously going to have an educational committee, which I'd certainly like to be involved on. Advisors marketing, I know there's a few good people there, like Michael Fox, etc. Look, it'd be really good that as an industry, if we do standardise, for example, the presentation. In fact, what I'll do is we'll put this up on YouTube, and then what we'll do is I'll send you out a PDF copy of the presentation that I do for clients. It'd be great if we could standardise it. I mean, we're all into this business together. You can tweak it, but at least if we know our presentation, our skills are the same sort of thing, then it makes it a lot easier. So advisors marketing is really important. How do we, you know, that's always a weakness. I remember I always became persona non grata with the SMSF Association once because I said the association was too busy looking after the secretariat and the executives, and really what they should be doing is promoting the association to the broader public. And I would have thought that that's the key. I mean, the CPAs did that very well. And certainly we need to be looking at doing that from our associations so that people are aware. Obviously, we haven't got big bucks to spend. And what we need to do is do it in a certain way that people do know when they come to us, they are getting the best of the best. So we're going to have a membership committee, which includes standards and discipline, which are absolutely crucial. Again, I can only hark back to SMSF Professionals Association, but the number of people who ended up going to jail or disqualified or ASIC who are on the SMSF Association membership database that have never been disciplined is just not on. I mean, if we want professionalism and ethics, we need to have good, strong discipline standards, which is important. Education, CPD and conference, absolutely. That's the area that I like to work in. Legislation and regulation, I think that's absolutely crucial. There's a lot of estate planning succession coming out. I know, for example, in the employee share plan, Mick would love to get involved with the tax office in relation to some of those areas, and client marketing and education. So if you can all choose a little spot on that one. So again, if you're interested in the next steps, again, have a chat with Michael. At this stage, we haven't got SAPEPAA emails, but I think they're coming very shortly.
Yeah, they should be within the next week, I believe. So
okay, so we'll let you know those. I'll send out the draft standards. We want to have a strong platform for the group and each of those standards. And again, thank you very much for those people who have volunteered. It is important, and these sort of associations don't go untoward. But if you've got any idea, let's go through. I think we're in a pretty good position in terms of COVID. The traditional associations tend to operate primarily a lot on their face-to-face conferences. That's where they make all their money. We want to make sure that that we make money, but we're also flexible and also very flat, so that at any point in time our members can go up. Now, is it going to be a huge membership over time? Is it going to be 10,000 members like the accountants? Absolutely not. This is a highly specialised strategic area. As all of you can see, is that you just don't know. You can't just go and build bloodline trusts. You can't go and build succession plans without that all-encompassing knowledge. So I see it as a very boutique, but a good, strong boutique, and with anywhere between $3 to $10 trillion passing over the next 20 or 30 years, it's certainly an area for us all to work into. And it's a very, well, for me, it's a very exciting area. I love SMSFs, but SMSF are probably about maybe 5 to 10% of this total equation that we're looking at. Have you got any parting words there, Mike? I know you've been doing some great little comments on the chat line, so thank you very much.
No, I mean, as you mentioned, then I'm extremely excited. I think there's a significant amount of opportunity in this space. It's great that we're getting an association. Like it's, there has been some poor advice out there, and it's set. I agree with you 100%. We need to set high standards and have disciplinary in place in relation to that to ensure that the SAPEPAA advisors continue to meet those high standards.
Exactly. So that's enough from us. But look, thank you all for attending today. We'll send you out the slides. We'll send you out the draft standards on Friday along with this video. So just watch out for that. But I give you all a heads up. Make sure that you are registered. You go to Lightyear Docs if you want. Tomorrow's Thursday session is with Michael. Just want to give a bit of a précis or a summary on some of the issues that you're going to be talking about, Mick.
Yeah, so tomorrow is effectively the launch of the partner solutions, which partner solutions into the Lightyear Docs membership base. And the one I'm kicking off, and I'll be having special guests and other partners along at various sessions. They'll be run every fortnight on a Thursday. Tomorrow's is on employee share plans. I've had a large amount of background experience and then from CFO, COO roles in listed entities. So we'll be bringing our solution to market that we can provide in that, and in terms of the setup and the ongoing administration. I'll be showing some information in relation to a cloud provider that we're using for that. So it'll be dealing with incentivizing staff, but also succession planning for your clients' businesses and even your own business. So I'm working with a number of light year members at the moment in relation to their clients and also their own accounting and advisory businesses and putting those in place. So I think it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait to get it out there.
Okay, cool. Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time. It's going to be a super busy year. I wrote down a bit of stuff for those who are on light year docs. I'll be sending some stuff out about all the things that are coming up from us. But otherwise, thanks, Mick. And yeah, thank you all for attending. And let's get this SAPEPAA up and running and start to shake the trees.
Let's go.